Wonderful. So welcome everybody to International Innovation Management 1. And we have the first chat message coming in. Hello, is there a passcode for the webinar? Let me see whether we have a passcode for the webinar. Let me see. There should not be a passcode required, but let's see whether we had something. I copy the invitation and copy it somewhere into a the passcode is the following. So this should be the passcode. I hope this helps. It should actually, the link should actually work, but if somebody needs a passcode, here it is. It's in the chat. Can you give me just a brief feedback whether that worked and helped, etc.?
Yes, it works.
Wonderful. Great. Thank you. That's good. All right. Now, what we did last time, what we did in the classroom last time, you certainly remember these two linear sequential ideas of an innovation process, which we called the demand pull or the technology push. And of course, as you might guess already, this is looking at innovation just from this partial view, from this view, either it is demand-driven or it's technology-driven, is maybe not the whole thing. And so there is a risk of looking at innovation or innovation processes, I might say, only from a partial point of view. And this is the first thing that we're going to look at, the risks of the partial or linear view. As I said, the push model or the pull model actually identifies or emphasizes only that is either technology that drives the innovation process, or it's the demand, or it's the consumers that drive the innovation process. And of course, this is a little bit short-sighted. It is typically not either or. I think we had an example in the classroom last week where we said, well, you know, IT or consumer electronics is a little bit of technology-driven, but also a little bit of consumer-driven. Or we had pharma, where some of you said, when I said this is technology or science-driven, some of you said, oh, there's also some consumer dimension here. You know, you have this large market of a certain disease, and this is a clear signal for the pharmaceutical company that it needs to be or would be viable or interesting to be addressed. So also here we would say maybe it's not only the partial view that is helping us, but it's not the either or, but it's the together. In some instances, it's a little bit more technology than markets. In other instances, it's more markets, more consumers than technology. And what is also important is, and we have identified this when we started talking about the innovation system, that innovation is not an isolated event, but it is always embedded in a more broad system, in a broader system of other activities, of innovation activities of other actors. Only seeing one dimension of innovation, well, that goes back a little bit, or goes away from the linear view, but a partial view. I think I said that already when we discussed the product and the process innovation, when we identified the definitions in the Oslo manual, that it is hardly conceivable that you produce a new product with old processes. So typically you have a concert of product innovation and process innovation to make either one of these or both of these innovations together make them work, because there's interrelations between them. Plus, of course, you cannot possibly, most of it, service innovation. You can't possibly think about a service innovation that does not involve new technologies, new processes for provision of these services. Hardly conceivable. So also that is a risk of a partial view of innovation when you only look at either product or process innovations, etc. And when we look at innovation, and we tend to think that it is only a function of R&D capabilities, we're also misguided. It is not only R&D capabilities within your company or outside of your company, that R&D capabilities that you can hire through outsourcing of R&D. We talked about this as well. No, it's not. There's also, as we have seen last week, there's the consumers. There's that consumers need to get the developed technologies and need to appreciate these developed technologies. Remember the Segway, brilliant piece of engineering, but consumers didn't really like it because it didn't really solve a given problem or a large problem for them that generated a willingness to pay for them that was larger, that was 9,000 euros or something. Innovation, and we will have this in the summer term, is not only the domain of specialists. So it's not only the innovation experts in your company that drive forward innovation. What you need to do as an innovation manager is include all sorts of colleagues, all sorts of other employees, also non-specialists, non-innovation specialists in your innovation endeavor. So you need perspectives, views, knowledge, experience of others in your organization, and you have to tap into them. So be friendly to them, be nice to them. Otherwise, they would not be forthcoming with their views, with their perspectives. And of course, as we said, it's not only R&D, but it's not only understanding and meeting consumer needs. I mean, if you understand that there is a consumer need out there, that there's a consumer problem out there, a customer problem that you want to solve, but you lack the technology, you lack the capabilities of generating an innovation, maybe generating a technology that helps solving this problem, everything will be futile. So that wouldn't work either. Only understanding the consumer doesn't do the trick either. Innovation is not only driven along the technological frontier. So innovation is also something that happens not only at the top technology frontier, but also below it when companies catch up, etc. Innovation is not only the business of large firms. We have talked about this at length when we talked about the Schumpeter Mark I and the Schumpeter Mark II. And it is not only about the big leaps, about the radical innovation. We talked about this when we identified that the bread and butter business of companies is actually incremental innovation. It's incremental steps, small steps that help the company to maintain market share, etc. So don't be misguided by a very narrow and partial view of innovation. Sometimes you get the impression that innovation is always and has to be always along strategically targeted initiatives. Well, sometimes it happens outside of this as well. So be open in your organization. Try to figure out what your colleagues do and bring this into the innovation process. Innovation is sometimes something for teams, sometimes it is something for the key individuals in the company. I'm sorry. We will talk about the key individuals either later today or soon after Christmas or after the Christmas break. I'm sorry. And innovation is not only the thing that happens within the company. So the world outside of the company walls is so large, and we will talk about this in the summer term when we talk about open innovation. So looking at issues, looking at ideas, looking at concepts, blueprints outside of your corporate walls and get inspired is very, very helpful. And leverage the knowledge and the expertise that is out there is a very helpful strategy for innovation. And sometimes you might think that innovation is just a single firm innovating, and we will talk about single firm innovating later today or in the summer term as well, when we have a new theory, which is the relational view of the firm. And the relational view of the firm will tell us that it is typically not a firm on its own that generates or is responsible for its competitive advantage, like in the resource-based view, etc., or in the Bain type IO. But typically, it's more firms, 2, 3 firms that in concert work together and and generate a competitive advantage. Okay, so address innovation, approach innovation in a very broad view. Not only look at the partial things, but look at it in a broad view. And the more podcasts, the more videos you will hear, you will listen to and look at, the more clear it will become that innovation is a broad thing. You need a lot of actors in your organization, and openness of your mind, openness of the organization towards innovation is crucial for making innovation successful in your organization. But the overall question still remains is, can innovation be managed? What we have seen, I have mentioned every now and then things that did not work well. The segue is something, the search for a certain glue in the 3M was not really successful in the first step. It was immensely successful in the second step, etc. So what we learn is that innovation is kind of a messy and risky thing. So a lot of things can go wrong. Projects can fail. You will learn either probably in your entrepreneurship courses this mantra: fail easy, fail soon, or fail fast, and fail easy. So the earlier you fail, the earlier you find out that something is wrong, that something doesn't work, the less costly it is, and the easier you can learn from this and recover from the blow that every failure actually is. So the the process, the innovation process, is rather complex with lots of problems in every stage, and it is complex because there's a lot of, as we have said earlier today, there's a lot of different actors that you need to include. Each one of these actors has their incentives, their ideas, their mindsets, their ways of thinking and working, and integrating all of these, making these compatible with your innovation target is a very complex thing for you to achieve. So when we look at this, we may think, well, innovation is messy, risky, complex. Is innovation success random? Well, I wouldn't say so. It's not random. There is some organizations out there that show us that not every innovation fails, that not everything actually goes wrong. Some organizations have actually learned to innovate. So when you, now a question to everybody of you, and you can use the chat, when you think about a company that is really successful in innovation, what companies do you think about? What companies do you think about? Put it in the chat. When you think about oh yeah, here's somebody coming in with Apple. Of course, you think about the Apple, you think about the Tesla, you think about Uber. Wonderful. So you think about Amazon, you think about NVIDIA. Okay, wonderful. You think about SpaceX, Dyson, Meta. Great. So people have different ideas. And of course, all of these companies can have proven that they are able to innovate on a continuous scale. Of course, they have failed, and they have failed a lot. So if you want to figure out what kind of strange products Apple has brought to the market or has thought about that finally failed, you will certainly find a lot. Ask your friend Google about this. This is amazing. I mean, the business processes at Tesla at first were a massive failure. They couldn't pull off building cars. Of course, they have learned about this. They have built routines to that. I have no clue about Uber, how Uber, of course, is successful, but whether they have their own account of failures, I believe so. Amazon has a lot, of course, some failures. Does anybody of you remember, may have been a couple of years back, I think the Amazon Dash. The Amazon Dash. Can you remember this? This was a button, just a button, and this button was connected to your Wi-Fi. And you could pre-configure this button, and whenever you press this button, Amazon, a purchase with Amazon was triggered. So when you ran out of, say, washing powder, you had a button in your washing powder cupboard, and you just had to push the button for ordering washing powder from Amazon, etc. That was available, I think, for half a year or a year, maybe two, but it has, for some sort, it has vanished. So doesn't seem to be something that Amazon tries to relay a lot on. Meta certainly has also its failures in the processes, in the services that they, but of course they have learned how to how to innovate on a continuous scale. So innovation doesn't seem that random. So what we need to do is we need to find an underlying pattern for success. We can't guarantee success, but we can make success a little bit more likely. So the idea is innovation management doesn't guarantee for success, but it makes success more likely. And I think that this is even helpful. We built a system, as I said, that doesn't guarantee deterministically that innovation works, but we will create conditions that are conducive to innovation, that are helpful to innovation. And as I said, you have collected another list of companies. Of course, if you look at, for instance, two of the larger German industrial giants, which have a history that goes back at least 150 years, which is Siemens, which is Linde. Linde started as a company building refrigerators, the industrial refrigeration processes, and then now into for the last, I don't know, 50, 60 years they're into industrial engineering and into gases. So if you need hydrogen for whatever reason, you go to Linde and they provide you with a process. Procter & Gamble, we all know, a US packaged consumer good giant, a couple dozen billion US dollar businesses under the umbrella of Procter & Gamble. We'll talk about Procter & Gamble later this year when you join us for the International Innovation Management in the summer term. So obviously there seems to be something out there that these companies do that help their long-lasting survival and build their innovation capabilities. And we believe that we can find routines in these organizations that help these companies to generate some sort of stable patterns of behavior that help them to be innovative over a longer period of time. So a routine is, as I said, a stable pattern of behavior. You can describe this with how things are done around here. So whenever you get the impression this is how people do things in this organization, then you are probably looking at a routine. And these routines are a function of the organizational culture. They're a function or result of experimentation and learning. So these routines have been established by experimenting and learning what worked and learning what maybe didn't work. And of course, they also base on shared beliefs, on shared ideas, what the company is, what the company should do, etc. And typically these routines sometimes are sort of automatic responses to some triggers. So as a routine would be if a customer comes and says, I have an idea, you could do this. A routine would then be for the customer representative to write this down and pass this on, either punch this in a knowledge management system, etc. So the trigger is the customer comes, has an idea, and a quasi-automatic response is triggered by the company. Okay, so these are routines. And of course, these routines are embedded in the structure of the organization. They are represented in the procedures and the processes of the organization. As I said, somebody comes along, has an idea, maybe even not a member, not a member of the organization, but there is procedures, there's processes that are able to work with this, that respond to this trigger. And of course, there is symbols that represent and characterize the underlying routines in the organization. So sometimes it has also to do with the culture of the organizations. As I said, routines evolved or developed by the organization learning what works and what does not work, what works and what fails. And routines are typically, constantly updated, etc. And some of my colleagues, some of the economic scholars of innovation argue that it is routines that are one reason, not the only reason, but one reason why firms differ. They work differently. There is different ways of doing things. And so it may be a reason for firm level heterogeneity may be found in routines. But of course, there is a dark side, a negative side to routines. So if routines are something like how things are done around here, they can make firms inert. They can hamper the flexibility of the firm. They can also hamper, they can shape innovation activities. As I said, people know what to do and how things are done around here, but they can also hamper innovation activities because, of course, an argument against doing something differently is, as we have here, this is not how things are done around here. So routines can have a dark side as well. But typically we say routines are something how innovation activities are baked into an organization. So what we should look at is innovation management as a process or as a management of routines, of processes, etc. And these routines can be influenced, and the process can hence be managed. So we end up the question with, can innovation be managed? We would say, yes, it can be managed. And of course, we would like to measure innovation. When we manage innovation, we would also like to measure innovation, to be able to measure innovation. But before we continue, I would like to ask you to write down in the chat, how would you measure innovation in an organization? What measures would you use to measure innovation success? Okay, we have a number of new patents coming in. I just read it out to everybody so that the ones who look at the recording and who do not have, who cannot look at the chat, get an idea what we have in the chat. Okay, so we have a number of new patents. Is there anything? Profit increase throughout the years, expansion of R&D expenditure, amount of money put annually into R&D, that's the R&D expenditure, yes. Time saved, less steps in the processes. Okay, how can we measure process innovation? Estimate the costs and benefits. Well, this is an interesting this is an interesting response. My question was, how do we measure innovation? And the response is, well, estimate it. Yeah, but how? The question was how to estimate this. New product launches, quantities sold on the market. Yes, there is interesting measures coming in. Consumer employee satisfaction, the number of and quality of partnerships and collaboration, reductions of cost. Wonderful. Again, how we can measure business process innovation. At least this is what I assume that is meant. Wonderful. Good idea. Yes. Reduction of cost was the last one. Now let's jump into the slides. Thank you for your for these inspirations, and we continue with an internal view on measuring innovation. The internal view is basis on a logic that we have inputs into the innovation process, and we have outputs of the innovation process. So input, if you like to think along an ROI logic, we would say the inputs are the I and the outputs are the return. So we would imagine that we could think of innovation as a process where you have inputs and then you do something with the inputs and you generate innovation output. So innovation input is transformed in the innovation process into innovation outputs. Now, how do we measure inputs and how do we measure outputs? That's the overall question here. Okay, so that you just, and we have the internal view. The internal view means that we look at the company from a accountant or management accountant type of perspective. So we assume here maybe that you can have access to the data, that you can go deep into the books, into the accounting system of the company, and look for data there. So this is the idea of the internal view. The external view is maybe something, we'll talk about this later, maybe something for a benchmarking exercise, etc. Okay, good. The internal view. So there is internal input metrics and there is output metrics. We have seen some input metrics. So you have already mentioned the R&D spend or R&D expenditure. We can measure the R&D spend as a percentage of sales. What would be the benefit of measuring R&D spend as a percentage of sales relative to measuring the R&D spend in dollars or euros? What's the advantage of R&D spend as a percentage of sales? Use the chat. Use the chat. Well, the R&D spending as a percentage of sales is a fraction, is a relative number, and does not correlate with the size of the organization. If you look at the R&D spend in dollars, you measure, you have there how much they spend, but you also have included, in a sense, the the size of the organization. We have something coming in. You have a view of how many effort and cost is going into R&D as compared to sales. Yes, this is also, we will see that this is a metric that is also used a lot in empirical analysis. So when you start running regressions, for instance, on how innovation input generates innovation output, so you regress output metrics, one output metrics on input metrics. You typically do not want to conflate this with the firm size. So what you typically use is R&D spend as a percentage of sales, as a percentage of cost, as, scaled down by the size of the company. So when you read papers, when you look at papers, when you look at empirical analyses in this, please also do not only look at the results, but also look at the variables, how these researchers have constructed the variables, what kind of metrics do they use to capture some of the innovation processes that we're talking about. Okay. Next input metric would also be an innovation expenditure as a percentage of sales. We have once said that R&D is a little bit more narrow than innovation expenditure. Innovation expenditure also includes the marketing expenditure for bringing new products to the market, includes the purchase of machinery that you need to produce these products. It also includes expenditure for R&D, for innovation training of employees, etc. So innovation expenditure is a broader category captures a broader category of expenses than R&D. Some of you had already mentioned something along these lines. Number of innovation projects started would also be a measure, or number of ideas in the idea pipeline, or number of new employees in R&D. Of course, what we have here is, or what number of employees in R&D, what we have here up here, R&D spend, R&D innovation expenditure, projects, new ideas. This is level measures. So we measure the level of R&D, we measure the level of innovation, we measure the level of innovation projects, etc. You could also think about measuring not only the level, but also the dynamics. So the change in R&D spend, the change in innovation expenditure. And we had this already, I think, in the very, we had this somewhere here in the, in your contributions, but I think it was on the output metrics. So you can also not only look at the levels, but also in terms of the dynamics. So change in R&D spend, change in innovation expenditure. And the output metrics, you could say, okay, we measure the output is the number of new products launched in a certain amount of time. You could say, well, the revenue or profit growth from new products. I think that was something that we had here. Profit increase throughout the years. Yes, that's pretty close to what we have here. Break-even time of new companies. And you could argue that the number of patents applied or the number of patents granted could also be some sort of indicators of innovation output. Okay. So when you look at empirical, as I said, empirical analysis in the field of innovation management, or in the field of innovation economics, you will certainly run into some of these metrics over and over again. Now, what can you do on the firm level with this? Assume that you run you are in a larger organization and you have different teams. You have maybe a couple hundred different teams that work on innovation. Of course, you can pick the data that you use, the data that you have, maybe the expenditure for the team, and some structural characteristics, and then you look at the output, run a regression, and see how innovation input translates in your organization into output metrics. So you basically then reconstruct the recipe, reconstruct how your firm works within a regression setup. This can be very, very helpful. Or you have the number, you have engineers, and you regress the number of patents that they work on maybe their location or on their salary, etc. And that gives you an overall idea how input are translated into output metrics. So whenever you ask yourself how the econometrics that you do in your first semester relate to innovation, we'll see it over and over again, that analysis or the statistical analysis of data can be very, very helpful and very, very fruitful in these kind of circumstances. Now let's go a step further. These different types of general metrics, we can break them down, what they tell us about the organization, what kind of types, what kind of parts of the organization are captured by these metrics. So you could think of capturing using innovation metrics to capture the organization's capabilities, the organization structures, maybe the culture of the organization. You can capture the leadership and the strategy, and of course you can capture the business, the product, the processes, etc. And when you look at this diagram here, you would certainly identify that the capability, structure, culture, and leadership are most prominently captured by input matrices. So matrices over here, and the business, the output, and the product are typically captured by output matrices. Okay, and we will now look at different metrics that help us to capture capability, structure, culture, leadership, and business and products. Now, the capabilities. How do we measure capabilities? Capabilities are practical skills, know-how of people, abilities, etc. Also, the tacit knowledge, the information capital that is used to generate innovation in your organization. So a potential metric here would be the percentage of employees with a certain level of training. So a very typical number is the percentage of employees with higher education training, with tertiary training. Sometimes you find the percentage of employees with upper secondary level of education. Tertiary education is higher education, so university or university degree in a sense, okay? That would be a metrics. Can you think of other metrics that refer to the capabilities of people, relevant for innovation, relevant for innovation? Why are we doing patents? I'm not really sure whether patents really reflect the capabilities of directly measure the capabilities of firms. You would be right if you say, okay, patents are the output of a process where these capabilities enter. But I'm not really sure whether we can measure capabilities by patents. How would you measure the capability to create? How could you measure this? Now it's about measuring. It's like, you're doing an internship and somebody tells you, we want to get an overview of how innovative our organization is. And you had this idea of breaking this down into capability, structure, culture, etc. Ah, wonderful. So qualifications, yes, number of employees who can use a specific software. Sometimes you find software is extremely important for creating, for designing, etc. So number of employees who can use Autodesk as a computer design, as a design software. Right. Or if you are in an agency, in a number of people who can use InDesign, would be something along these lines. Yes, wonderful. This is right. And when you do your internship and you have to measure or display the innovativeness of your organization, you have to be creative yourself to think about what kind of indicators can I actually use. So number of people with a specific software, number of employees with a level of training, right? So these kind of things come to mind. Good. Next, structures. So it's about the organizational structure. It's about the processes. It's about the resources. It's about the infrastructure. Probably that's a little bit more easy for you to understand this, because this is a little bit more traditional, I would say, accounting for innovation. So as we said, the percent of budget allocated to R&D, the percent of the budget allocated to innovation, again, different. We can also measure this, as I said, in dollars or euros. And somebody has already said this, I think. No, it was a different process. Speed of the innovation process. So how long does it take from idea to product launch? We had an example for that. We had an example. I think I have told you an example for this where I explicitly mentioned this measure. You recall this? You can recall this? I explicitly mentioned this measure. I did not call it the speed of the innovation process, though. I called it a little bit different. But this was actually what it was. It was the speed of the innovation process. What did Yes, it was time to market. It was my description of Zara, the fashion company, when I said from idea to shop in 2 weeks. From idea to shop in 2 weeks. That is the speed of Zara's innovation process. And of course, depending on the structure, and I already also said that they changed the organization, they changed the whole setup of the whole setup of the company to improve this innovation process, right? So when you talk about the time to market, this is a potential metric for the structure. How fast can you innovate? How long does it take from the idea to product launch? And of course, in an environment which is increasingly dynamic, which is increasingly fast, the speed of the innovation process may matter. Okay, so it's an important. Can you think of other measures that you could have to measure the structure of the innovation process? How can you measure the infrastructure of a company related to innovation? Ideas in the chat. Ideas in the chat. How new the hardware is. Yes, wonderful. Right, wonderful. And when we think about hardware, maybe it's not only the computer hardware that you may typically think about, but how new is the machinery? How new is the rapid prototyping equipment that you have? So how new, how top-notch are your R&D printers for producing prototypes? The amount of employees in a certain department. Good idea. So how many people do you actually have in your innovation department, in your R&D department? Yes, could be a measure, could be a measure of structure. Wonderful. Very good. All right. Now, let's talk about the culture. Culture is really important. And a definition of culture is that it is a pattern of shared beliefs, values, norms, expectations, experiences, philosophies, and visions. And it shapes what the firm actually thinks about itself and how the people actually interact in the organization, how intensively they contribute to innovation, etc., is of course a measure of the innovation culture. Now, I suggest here you measure this by employee participation in innovation initiatives, or the number of employees trained in innovation tools. Of course, this second bullet point can also be a measure of capabilities. This is sometimes not always 100% clear. There is some overlap. But of course, employee participation in innovation initiatives is a good measure of how innovative the culture is. What else could you measure? How else could you measure the innovation culture of a firm? Ideas, additional ideas. Measuring culture in a firm. Employee satisfaction. Yes, you could do that. I have a suggestion. I have a suggestion. What I just did, openness toward other culture ways of work. Wonderful. Yes. Team event participation. Oh, wonderful. So you imagine that team events are always an opportunity for people to interact with each other. And where people interact with each other, maybe novelty occurs. So team event participation, openness towards other cultures or way to work. Wonderful. Right. So what I just did on the side, and I'd like to share my screen or a part of my screen with you. I hold on for a second, and you will immediately guess. I share only a portion of my screen with you. Share. So you should see, you should now see a ChatGPT output. And my question was, you can't see this, now you could see this. How can we measure innovation culture in a company? Okay, the question here is everything that ChatGPT suggests really measuring culture? So we get something in here again from how flat the organization structure is as well. Wow, good. Now, leadership support. Well, leadership support is something where we would say, yeah, leadership support is important. Maybe it's part of the culture. We could, the level of commitment support from top leadership for initiatives. Well, this is not a measure. How would you measure leadership support? Not very concrete. Open communication, measure the effectiveness of communication channels within the organization. Yeah, but we were asking for measures and not what categories we could actually do. Risk tolerance, assess the willingness, etc. So what we get here is actually not something that helps us quite a lot. So sometimes thinking on your own, taking the question as it was supposed to, what it's supposed to mean is more helpful than punching in something in a ChatGPT. So this just on the side. Yes. So how do we measure employee satisfaction? There is certain instruments out there. On a scale from 1 to 10, how satisfied are you with your company? How flat is the organization? Well, you can actually, count the number of hierarchies in an organization. Yeah, leadership support can be measured by the amount of people in leadership support program in the company. Yes, this is how we would measure leadership support, and this is a measure. And wonderful. So you took the inspiration from ChatGPT and made it your own and used it to make a meaningful contribution. Wonderful. This is good. This is how it should work. But of course, we have culture is one thing, and as you remember, we had the fourth category was leadership and strategy. And of course, this leadership support that you just mentioned here could also fall into the leadership and strategy category. Okay, so strategy and leadership, or strategy is making both choices of top management, and of course, this should also be reflected in the team. Now, very interesting measure, and it's probably astounding what you're going to get when you ask top management what's the fraction of your overall time that you spend on strategic innovation? You would probably find that this is a very low number. Well, you could also measure the number of executives or people in your top management team with an innovation-related training, or the number of product or strategic innovation projects that have top management sponsors, also important. That would signal the larger the number is here, the higher is innovation on the priority list of your top management team. And this is what we want to measure. Also a very important measure is the number of managers, or the fraction of managers who have an innovation training and who have finally ended up in a leadership position. So that would give you an idea how important innovation training is in an organization to become a leader. Again, how important is innovation for strategy here? And of course, a very more or less profane kind of version is percentage of ideas that are killed because they do not fit the strategy of the firm. This is also, of course, a measure that you can use. Now, the question is, how do you interpret this measure? How would you, do you think that the number of ideas killed because of a lack of strategic fit is good, the larger the number is, or is it bad, the larger the number of ideas that are killed because of the lack of strategic fit is? What would you think? What would you think? Is a large number here, say 30%, is this good or is this bad? So you would say it is bad. Why? Why would you say that it is bad if we kill 30% of the ideas because they lack strategic fit? Why would you say it is bad? Or why would anybody else say this is bad? It is bad. Maybe you can find a way to implement into your strategy. Yeah, typically what you don't want is you don't easily change your strategy just because you have a couple of ideas, a couple of ideas. You don't want to fix your strategy for that. This is what you can, of course, later do. You can try to sell these ideas. Of course, this is the idea of open innovation. Once you find something that doesn't fit your strategy, but looks like a good idea, that you try to sell this idea. But I'm with, I could imagine that it is 30% is bad. Why? Why is 30% bad? Well, 30% is bad, I would say, because that signals that at the early stages of idea generation, your strategy has not really been well communicated and well received. So on the other hand, 30% can be a very, very, very good thing. So the response to my question would be, it depends. It depends on how you look at it. If you look at it from the innovation process point of view, say, okay, at the beginning in the idea generation, idea selection, etc., this strategy has not been communicated too well. On the other hand, you can say, oh, we identified 30% that rather early in the process that have a lack of strategic fit. That means we are not investing in something that turns out not to fit to the company. So in terms of resource allocation, this is good. Looking for ideas that seem to be good ideas, but do not fit to the organization is extremely crucial. What you can do is the suggestion that comes in here. You can sell the idea later. Kill the idea, you kill the project, and try to sell it later to somebody else. Of course, that means that you have to protect the idea in the first place. But we'll talk about this when we talk about open innovation in the summertime. Okay, wonderful. And of course, there is the last category when it's about product, it's about processes, and it's about the business. These measures try to measure the innovation performance, so the innovation output. Number of new products launched, revenue gained from new products as a share of sales, growth rates, projected break-even times, new markets entered. And this is, I have to admit, very product-centered measurement here. That you look at, you typically look at in here on this slide. It looks like goods and services, but what I have seen, and I appreciate this very much, there was the idea at 10:45, so you can scroll up to in the chat and see this, the reduction of costs. So if we are looking at business process innovation, of course, number of new products launched is not a good measure. Growth rates of new products, probably not a good measure, but reduction of costs, increase of reliability, increase of the lifespan of the product, etc. This is good measures. So I'm very grateful to the comment on at 10:45 with the reduction of costs. This is very, very helpful. Okay, so this is how you can measure innovation if you have access to firm internal data. Of course, because the number of new products launched, you could maybe from third parties, from press releases, etc. But the percentage of management time spent on strategic innovation is something that you have to survey within the organization, or employee participation in innovation initiatives from the outside. You don't know this. So this helps you to get an idea on the innovation activities of your firm or of the firm where you have intimate access to. As I said, the internal view it's very detailed. It's very, very, very helpful. And you need intricate knowledge of the firm. Internal analysis is good. For external analysis, it's not that helpful. So for benchmarking, etc. Now there's another issue I'd like to mention. We have now differentiated between input measures and output measures, input metrics and output metrics. So remember this, there's input metrics and there's output metrics. So what is a difference for you as a manager between the input and the output metrics? For you as a manager, at which one of these metrics do you really look at? And is there a difference for you as a manager? Is there a difference?
I think as a manager, you have to look at everything.
That's a good point. Of course, you would like to look at everything. That's a good point that comes in here. As a manager, you would like to look at everything. So as input metrics and as output metrics, that's correct. The problem with the output metrics is that the innovation process takes quite a long time. So translating these inputs into outputs is a very time-consuming process. So as a manager, of course, you can more or less easily and quickly change the capabilities. Change the capabilities would mean hire more people, send people on additional educational programs, etc. Change the structure, put more R&D into more R&D dollars into your organization. Open an additional research lab somewhere. Change the culture a little bit more, a little bit harder, have more events, have people come to the events, etc. Change leadership and strategy. That's also possible. This is what you can do as a manager. Very immediately, you look at metrics and say, oh, they don't fit what I want, and you change something. The problem is that it takes sometimes years for measures that you have taken, for initiatives that you have implemented to finally realize innovation output, change in the innovation output. But of course, we are not, at the end of the day, we're interested in innovation output because innovation input as such does not buy us competitiveness. Innovation output does. And innovation output is very, very hard to change. You have to change the innovation output and you have to change the innovation process in a sense. But the innovation output as such is really hard to change. So managerial intervention most often happens on the level of the inputs. And then to be able to causally relate the changes in the output to the initiatives is really, really hard. And so for managerial intervention, the inputs are more easy. It's more easy to intervene with the inputs than with the outputs. Okay, I think this is important to realize. Now, and that holds for internal views and externals anyway as well. So the question is, when we want to do some benchmarking, when we want to look at other companies, how do they do innovation? How do they perform in innovation? So how do you perform relative to national, international competitors? How does your industry perform relative to other industries, etc.? We need definitely a more simple metric system. And this metric system was suggested by Oz et al., and they are McKinsey consultants. So you need 3 metrics, and these 3 metrics are, well, rather easily available, if you like. So one measure is down here. Where's my pointer? Down here is the R&D spending as percentage of total sales. Second measure is that you need is sales from new products as a percentage of total sales. And you need the gross margin as a measure of total sales. So how much do you make as a measure of total sales? Now, and you look at these three measures, and from these measures, you build two conversion ratios. So you divide this measure, sales from new products, by R&D spending as a percentage of sales. So the total sales cancel out, and what you get is how well do your R&D convert into new product sales. So this is the first measure that you want to look at. So R&D to new product conversion. The second measure is how good do these new product sales actually convert into your gross margins. So you divide this metric by this metric. Again, the total sales cancel out. And what you get is how well do your product sales actually convert into higher gross margins, or higher profits, if you like. Okay, so by having three simple metrics, these three, you can build two conversion ratios that give you a good idea on how well a company does in the field of innovation. So, and of course, you can do this with data that is sometimes easily available. So you can look at industry-level data, industry-level R&D spending, industry-level gross margin, sales from new products. You can find this on Domodoran, or you find this for Germany at the Center for European Economic Research. They have reports there. Some of these measures can also be found in R&D, in annual reports of companies. So these measures are more easily available than all of this here, okay? So these measures are more or less easily available as compared to the internal measures. Now, we have now discussed how we can measure innovation. Now, the question is, what are the success factors of innovation? And what management research says, and there is a paper out there, it's a little bit dusted, but it's still very, very good. What are the critical factors for innovative success, so for innovation success? And they break it down into two broad categories, which is the technological viability and the commercial viability. So the technological viability is the question, does it work technologically? And the commercial viability is, does it sell on the market? So do consumers like it? Do you sell it, etc.? And this is here, can you improve it? Now, the consensus in the literature is the following. Firm-related forces for technological viability, firm-related factors, is culture is important. Culture affects the capabilities that you have, the technological capabilities that you have. Culture, routines play together, as you may guess from what we have said earlier today. The resistance to innovation or the appreciation of innovation is very much a cultural thing. Internal collaboration, somebody already said we need to measure the collaboration, internal, external collaboration. is a cultural. And of course, the mission of the organization is a culture. So culture is crucial for technological viability. Experience with innovation. So the more experience an organization has, the more technological capabilities they have, because experience also helps the buildup of capabilities. And the more experience you have, previous projects help you to learn from success, help you also to learn from failure. So this is important. Learning by doing and learning by failing would be important here. And of course, if you look at the characteristics of the R&D team, of the innovation team, you need interdisciplinary. Again, you need technological capabilities, and you need to pair this technology. You don't only need these brilliant engineers in your R&D and innovation teams, but of course you need people with business skills, with access to consumers, etc. And what is also helpful, we had this sponsors and product champions or project champions are very, very helpful here as well. Strategies towards innovation. So strategic support for innovation is important. Resource allocation, which comes from the strategy, is important. The amount of risk that you want to take in a company is important for technological success. And of course, the protection strategy. How do you make sure that your competitors are not benefiting from your innovation ideas? And of course, you need projects that fit to your firm strength, to your strategic capability, to your strategy. And of course, you need an elaborate innovation management style. Here, the literature says innovation management is crucial to manage the costs, manage the innovation, have a sound system for making decisions, etc. Is very important. This is what the literature says for technological viability. For commercial viability, it's again, microeconomics, the relative price of your innovation. So the relative price relative to competing products, to substitutes, is incredibly important for commercial viability. The total cost of use is important of this product, and of course, addressing important customer needs is important for making it a commercial success. Product quality, I mean, this is sort of obvious. So here the product related factors are, I would say, sort of obvious. We are not very surprised to see this here. Market related factors is, of course, concentration in the targeted market. Do you have easy access to consumers? Are they concentrated somewhere? Can you easily communicate with these consumers, etc.? We will talk about the concentration and the urbanization, etc., when we talk about innovation in emerging economies, when we talk about innovation for resource-constrained consumers, then this concentration of customers, etc., comes up in urbanized areas. Timing of market introduction, of course, are you first, are you second, or are you a laggard in that sense, is also important here. So I would say the commercial viability is not very surprising if you have paid close attention to the lessons that you had in microeconomics. I think this is what you would have guessed. Anyway, but it's good to see that the literature is not deviant to that. What do managers say? And with the managers' contribution to what makes innovation successful, we wrap up today. Managers say you need to encourage your employees. You need to empower your employees, give them the opportunity to take some risks. You need to positively reinforce them, recognize what they do, recognize successes, recognize failures for the risk taken. What you need is creative people with critical thinking skills. They have not asked managers what they think critical thinking skills actually are, but they mentioned critical thinking skills. Meaning is very important. So give your employees a little bit more than just the target or the goal to make profits. So give them meaning. Why are they doing this? What is a broader, higher meaning of working for this company? Top management commitment. Yes, we have said this. A clear strategy. Protected space for experimenting is part of the empowerment, of course. Enough resources, of course. Still, sometimes you have to tell managers that you need to allocate resources to innovation if you want innovation outcome. They're not pulling it out of thin air. So this is very, very important. Innovation should be part of the culture. You can't change this from in the short term, but you need to be aware that innovation is part of your culture, and focus the company on the consumer. So without a consumer problem, most of the innovations that we bring to the market are not very helpful. Of course, focus on the consumer does not only mean focus on the consumer when you're only product innovating. Also, business process innovations can have major implications for the consumers. Good. This is it. Then there's a slide with some of the literature. It's 11:42. And is there still questions, comments from your side? If not, then we'll meet again next week on Tuesday at 10:15, and we'll have something coming up that I'd like to call the Christmas lecture. It will be a little bit end of the year, Christmas season type of lecture at the end. So if you want, you can already prepare a hot cup of tea, etc., for next week's lecture to get in Christmas mood. Okay, so see you then. See you next week online Christmas lecture. See you then. Bye-bye.